This is the Wild Ass Podcast, and I am your host, Wild Ass Craig. This is episode 5, and in this episode, I get to introduce all of you to Denver Woods. He's a guy that I have gotten to know and become friends with over the last year or so through his podcast, The V-Twin Life. Denver was born and raised in the Pacific Northwest on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State. He met his wife just after graduation, and 26 years later, they are still living the dream. Denver and his wife Amy have raised 3 amazing young adults. Their daughter Maddie is 23, and they have 2 sons, Hayden, 21, and Seth, 19. Denver has spent his life on 2 wheels. He started riding when he was around 5 and just never stopped. Getting into racing when he was young, he started with motocross. Did that for a few years until having a bad wreck, which led him to having brain surgery and facial reconstruction as a young teenager. After his recovery, Denver left the motocross scene and got into hill climbing, making many lifelong friends in that sport. Even his kids got into hill climbing when they were younger, climbing in the Pee Wee class. Denver really wanted to get on the roads, so he sold his hill climb bike and bought his first road bike right around the year 2000. Then during the pandemic, he came up with the idea about starting a motorcycle podcast. Having a passion for bikes, a subject he could talk about, and a desire to share stories of the road and traveling on 2 wheels. It seemed like a good idea. He wasn't sure people would enjoy it, but wanted to give it a try. So in October of 2020, the V-Twin Life was born. Coming into 22, the V-Twin Life had already hit about 50 episodes. As with any growth, they aren't called episodes anymore. And the addition to video has them on YouTube. Right now, we're going to get more into Denver's history, his take on the podcasting gig, and then maybe a little help for yours truly. Denver, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you very much, man. Thanks for having me on the Wild Ass Podcast.
Thank you so much. This has been a struggle putting this one together for the listeners. We've been trying to connect here for, I think it's been close to 2 weeks, huh?
It has been a little while, but I mean, with your line of work and, all the stuff you got going on, I mean, you're a very busy individual. I think we had it similar when, I was trying to line up to get you on the V-Twin Life.
Yeah, when was that? I don't remember. It was early.
I was just looking back. It was early. November of 2020.
So you were about a month in. It seems like we were in the single digits for sure for episodes for you.
Yeah, you were the 8th episode.
Episode number 8. That's crazy. And here you are well into the 50s at this point, aren't you?
Yeah, we actually, as you know, we're saying, went into mileposts. It was just something that really seemed to fit. I think when I hit 20, it's like, this is a milepost, so you're going somewhere. You're 20 and then 25, and I was talking with Cesar Pendants. He's like, man, he goes, I think you're really onto something. He goes, milepost is just something awesome. That's like, exactly. You're riding, you're just enjoying the road, you're past the milepost, and it's one after another, and it just stuck. So we went to every episode was a milepost, and it's something different, something unique, and I like it. Dare to be different.
I like it, and you changed your artwork and everything, so now it even shows the mileposts when you post new episodes. I think it's great.
Yeah, I gave it a custom touch to it, and yeah, I really like it. It's a lot of fun.
And it's what you're talking about is riding, getting out, riding, doing some things. I want to talk about your podcast, but first I want to learn a little bit more about your history. You started riding at 5 years old, and it's surprising how many kids ride that age. But back when we were kids, that wasn't necessarily the case, was it?
No, I mean, there were some guys, I think it's just, my stepdad was the one that got me into motorcycles, and he was, he spent his life on them, on old Harleys and, riding with all his old homeboys. And it was something he picked up. God, I want to say it was the late 70s, Yamaha little MX-80. And I rallied that thing everywhere.
An MX-80, that's funny because I have 2 of those in my shed. You don't see those anymore.
No, if I remember right, it was white and black. I mean, I remember riding that all over the property, trail riding, and that little bike was the beginning of it.
That's crazy. Where were you? So you did that. Do you remember your first race, where that was or how that went?
My first one was here in Port Angeles up at Deer Park. We have the Olympic Peninsula Motorcycle Club, which has been, man, I think it's been here since the late 50s, somewhere in the 60s. And, they have the motocross track up there. They used to have flat track up there. The hill climb is on the backside of the property because it's a good chunk of acreage that the motorcycle owns, or the motorcycle club owns up there. And that's, really where it all started for me, was up at Deer Park.
That's cool. How old were you at the time?
Um, Probably my first actual race, it might have maybe 9 or 10.
Okay. Yeah, so you got a good young start.
And the biggest thing when I started, what I really enjoyed was riding trails. I mean, when you live up here in the Olympic Peninsula, I mean, you got the national forest, tons of DNR land, and I we'd go ride trails, and it was all the time, man. If I could get my stepdad to go out riding, boy, we were out riding all the time when it came to dirt bikes.
That's awesome. So he was a rider too then.
Yeah, he's the one that, I mean, both my dad and my stepdad both ride on the road, but my dad was never into the dirt bike side of it, and that's where my stepdad got me hooked on dirt bikes when I was young, and my dad was a great supporter of it, and there's some of the hill climbs when we got into hill climbing in my teenage years. He came to a lot of those. He'd take me, and it was a lot of fun.
That's cool. So racing motocross, we talked a little bit about your crash, had a good wreck, got some injury
Yeah.
there. That took you out of motocross. What drew you to hill climb? How did that happen?
Um, I had tried it a few times, and it was a lot of fun. And I think kind of after my, getting in the wreck on the motocross track, you're racing motocross. I mean, as anybody's watching, there's say 10 guys in front of you. You got guys to the left and right of you. There's guys behind you. And when I started doing the hill climbing, it's you against the clock by yourself on the hill. You're just trying to get the best time you can. 9 times out of 10, if you're going to crash or things are going to go bad, you can just, cut the bike off, cut throttle, all right, instead of looping your bike and flipping it and sending the bike for a ride. And it just, it became just an awesome adrenaline rush hill climbing. I mean, some of the hills I'd go to, and it just became addicting.
Adrenaline is the great drug that it's hard to explain to people that haven't done it. So you being a hill climber, I'm an old motocross guy, so that's my deal. I always thought the hill climbers were freaking crazy. But the only people more crazy is the guys catching your bike tumbling down the hill.
And the hill climb in Idaho, that one was like that. It was up in Smelterville, which is little, I'd say 45 minutes east of Coeur d'Alene, just past the town of Kellogg. And the hill climb was in a little rock quarry, and they actually had guys with hooks because it had a vertical wall in the middle. I think that hill was, God, I want to say it was 900 feet. And I'd never made it over that one. There's a few other ones I did, but that one just, I could never get all the way to the top. But man, it was fun trying.
I don't see it. We had, in the gravel pits, we got some hill climb stuff in, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's for me. So kudos to you. Balls way bigger than me. That's fun.
Yeah,
but then you took your kids and did it.
Yeah, they got into it because, I mean, they started coming when I was really young. Oh, well, I was young. Well, I guess I was young. We had kids young, but they started coming when they were little, and we got them on dirt bikes. Like my daughter got her. She had a PW80. We had a little KTM 50 for the Hayden had, and they got into it, and they did it for a while, and it's a great family sport. I mean, I watched so many families grow up doing it. A lot of guys, their kids that come before you. How time flies. I can remember some of these kids are racing the Pee Wee class. Next time they're running the 0 to 600 exhibition and modified classes on, stretch CR 500s that are all just built to the hilt, running alcohol. And it's like, man, where does time go? And, it's been like that.
It's crazy. And what most people see when they look at, they see dirt bikes or, hill climb bikes are dirt bikes. But when they see people riding these things, we're just out causing trouble, right? They don't realize when you go to these events how much of a close-knit family that everybody becomes.
Oh, very true. I mean, I can remember one one hill climb. What did I do? I did something. I'm trying to remember now offhand. Oh, I crashed and I bent the bar so bad I actually broke off the left side of the handlebar, where your clutch and everything is. I'd snapped the bars. And I want to say it was a buddy of mine, Mickey Warfield. He's like, you gonna make your next run? I'm like, dude, there's no way. My bars are broke. And he's like, hold on. Brought his bike over. He goes, hey, I'm not running for like 3 or 4 hours. We'll swap everything. Where he took his handlebars off, stuck them on mine so I could make my next run and finish my class. Get back there, we take him back off, put him back on his bike. But there were so many people like that. When you get into it, you're doing it for so long, you're right. You become that close knit family. And somebody broke apart, they didn't have it. We're all looking, hey, do I have something that's going to help you? Do I got the piece? And I can remember sharing wheels and tires with people because you'd run like the pro modified class was a knobby. So back then, the big tire you wanted was a Terraflex. You cut every other row out, and they were huge square knobs, and those things would bite hard. Well, then when you'd run the exhibition, you could run paddle. And I remember showing up one buddy of mine, hey, you can run the exhibition? Like, no, I didn't, my paddle in order didn't show up. Hey, no problem, man. He goes, I got an extra wheel. He goes, we'll just, pop your master link, slide this on in, we'll put the axle back a little bit farther. And, you'd borrow somebody's setup and run the class and you give it back to them. That was just how it worked. It was just an awesome group of people to be around and be part of.
Oh, for sure. Yep, same at the motocross track. But what's most amazing is I think that's just the motorcycle industry in general. No matter what, if something happens and you're on the road out of town riding your motorcycle, don't you find the same experience?
Yeah. And, I've ran into that before once when the voltage regulator went out on my bike a couple of years ago. And this old guy had seen us at the gas station and he came back to town like 2 hours later. He's like, weren't you guys here earlier? And, oh, yeah, I explained to him. He's like, well, I got a Road King. He goes, man, I can go home and pull it off. Hey, thank you. I said, I got a buddy. He's on his way back from the other side of the Cascades with one, but, thank you. And then you end up talking to the individual for a while on the side of the road. And it's like that. The motorcycle community is just an awesome group of people. How many times do you think about you go to a gas station to get gas and you're there for 10, 15 minutes because the individual pump of gas on the other side, maybe he rides or a family member sees your bike and one little piece strikes up a conversation that takes you way longer than what you intended in the gas stop. But, you got to meet another person and share a story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So going through the hill climbing stuff, developing that family branches off, continues on. What prompted you to leave that family and want to go on the road?
I'd always had a drive to eventually want to get on the road and road riding. I was, that side kind of was one of my dad's big passions. He's ridden on the road since, God, in the 70s. He always had road bikes and, watching my stepdad, he'd always rode on the road. He built his bikes from scratch. And like, I want to experience that side of it. And, plus having kids and whatnot, trying to travel to a lot of these places and whatnot, it's also, entry fees, the travel and that stuff gets expensive. It's like, well, maybe it's time to want to go play on the road and learn that side of motorcycling. And, sold my 500 and found a 83 Honda Sabre. And man, I got that, started riding on the road, and man, I fell in love with riding on the road.
It's hard not to. And where you live, such a beautiful part of the country to be riding in.
Oh, it is. I live at the base of the Olympic Mountains. On the peninsula, there's some great roads, but within 2.5 hours, you can be at the foothills of the Cascades. And man, there's so many roads, and it is a beautiful place to go. You can go from the South Cascades up to the north and the mountain highways. A day ride up here can just be some absolute amazing scenery, man. You go from the ocean and go find the snow.
Yeah, when you got, when is your summer season? Like, so talking about snow, you guys don't get a lot of snow, if I remember correctly.
No, not usually. We'll get a little bit, maybe December, but it doesn't hang around very long, a couple of weeks. And then usually you just kind of got the colder temperatures to deal with. But no, we're not a big snow climate, kind of like, you guys in the Midwest.
Right. Is there an off season for riding where bikes are just parked for this month or this 2-month period of the year, or not really?
Not really. Some people do just because, temperatures, some guys, hey, it's 40, 45 degrees. There's no way I want to go ride. I think it all just kind of depends on your styling. I mean, if you want to throw on another layer of clothes, I mean, a guy realistically, you could ride year round up here. I mean, I went for a ride in November, and I was thinking about going today, but it's raining.
It's
But
raining
no,
and I
it's
have you
really
pegged down doing this.
yeah. But no, I mean, you do have the opportunity. You could ride year round up here. It's just you got to dress appropriately.
Sure. Yeah, and I just asked because I don't know. A friend of mine lives right near Seattle, and he snowmobiles all winter long, but I guess he can ride his motorcycle quite often too. I think I saw him on Facebook just the other day, posted pictures riding his motorcycle, which makes me jealous. So it's good you get to ride year round.
John.
Yeah, Farian. Yep.
Yeah, he's a little east of Seattle out there, right at the foothills of the Cascades.
Yeah. So after your first bike, what was how many bikes have you had? And we'll get to what bike you're on now. So tell us your chain of bikes and what you know what, let's do something different. Tell us what you liked about each one of them, if you remember.
Well, I mean, the first one was the Honda Sabre, had the V45 750. I mean, it was a great, great starter bike for, getting on the road. Really, there wasn't much complaints. It was a lot of fun. I took that. Actually, it was my first motorcycle trip. Me and my dad did a 4-day loop around Washington State. Packed us up tents and gear and went for a ride. It was a lot of fun. I'm not so sure there's anything that was super special about it. Just, you wanted to. It had plenty to get up and go. Get on the highway, you want to get around cars. It would move. I enjoyed it. And, I decided kind of maybe go something a little sporty. I picked up I think it was an 83. It was 83 or 84, a GS 750 ES, little inline 4. And that thing screamed. I mean, I was working out west and on Highway 112, it's really windy and curvy. And that was kind of the beginning of the sport bikes. And I got to the point I was pushing it too hard and too fast. Like, I'm going to end up getting hurt. And I let that one go. And then after that, I got a Suzuki Boulevard, 2005, the C50. And that bike was super comfortable. That kind of got me into the cruisers.
I'd say, yeah, back
and
in
I
the
really
cruiser
enjoyed
world.
that bike. Yeah. After having the sport bike, I've kind of really enjoyed laying the curves and, high speed cornering and whatnot. But it's like, yeah, I could see bad things were going to happen if I would have hung on to it. So I decided, we're going to go to the cruiser world and, go for that comfort. And man, the Boulevard was a great bike. I think they kind of really priced them right. I could see where they kind of saved some costs. The fenders were plastic on them, but they were super comfortable. I mean, even, and my wife, she loved that bike. We'd, take little day rides and trips, and it was super comfortable. Had it all set up for the touring, put the windshield on it, had a tea bag on the back with the saddlebags, the floorboards, highway pegs, had to put the Cobra slash cuts on it. And, for the little small metric V twin, it sounded, really decent with the Cobras on it. And it was a great, comfortable bike.
Yeah. And once you get some of that tweaking done to kind of fine tune it for you to make it fit you, any motorcycle's great. I love them all. I always say, oh, I want one of those. And Renee, actually, she always says, you just want all the motorcycles, don't you? Well, yeah, pretty much. Why not? That's what we're supposed to do, right?
Yeah, you got to have one for different events. My touring bike, my, adventure bike. I want to go ride the trails bike, my Sunday bike, my hooligan bike, my day hopper bike. I mean, guy needs like 7 of them.
That's a fact. And you're a podcast expert, so now it's official. See, now I can tell her. See, even Denver says.
Oh,
that's funny. So you mentioned the 4-day trip around Washington with your dad. That is something that I have not gotten to do. Just take a motorcycle trip with dad and my brother. We talked about it. Actually, we were going to do it in 20. I believe it was 20 when we were going to do the run for the wall. And it, that, of course, just nothing happened. So we still haven't done it other than just a day ride. So that's pretty cool. Tell us about that. What was, give us a story or two from that, because that's what we're into, right? Trying to get your stories.
Oh, yeah, there's a good one. So it was a lot of fun. We left here and Cruise Highway 20 goes kind of through northern Washington, and we headed up over the North Cascades Highway. And our first night we stayed up in Winthrop. And we stayed at the little campground. Winthrop is a small town kind of built around the Western theme. You know, you had the boardwalk, sidewalks, and, you know, the whole town is basically like you're in the turn of the century, late 1800s, 1900s. It's a cool place.
Sure.
And so we're up at the campground, kind of up around the corner from Three Finger Jack's little bar and saloon. And my dad had a buddy staying up there. So we went and saw him for a little while. And him and his girlfriend, they had these mirror tickets. I think they're like right behind home plate. He's like, we're going to stay up here. You guys take them. And Dad looked at him and was like, hey, we're not going back to town. He goes, well, I don't care. Do whatever you want. It's like, we don't want them.
Tickets
So
for what, you said?
It was for a Mariners game,
Okay.
baseball.
Yeah.
Down in Seattle. And so we went back down to the bar and we're having a few drinks before, you know, we ventured back up to our camp. And they had a game playing, and remember the bartender had a Mariners shirt. He's like, hey, let's just give them to her. I'm like, cool. So, you know, we ended up talking to her, and Dad gave her the tickets. And she's, you know, basically ends up letting us drink on the house. And the next morning, oh, yeah. So I can remember the next morning, I'm just, you know, still kind of in my tent, and I can already hear my dad's bike running. He's like, we got to go. I'm like, you know, it's 6:30 in the morning. And he's going nuts, and I'm like, all right. He's literally taking down my tent while I'm still in it. So I quickly, you know, get up, we get dressed, we're packing things up. And as we're leaving, I can look at the little cabin. There's, you know, showers in there, a couple washers and dryers for doing clothes and bathrooms. And there was water running out of the front door. I'm like, what the heck? He's like, I went to use the bathroom and it plugged up and something broke and just flooded the whole building. There's water coming out the doors. He's like, we got to go. What the hell? And you get downtown, there's this little bakery. The town smells, man. Hey, let's, you know, grab something to eat. He's like, next town, we're leaving. And it's just one of those little things like I will never forget. Rolling out of the campground, there's water running out the front door of the cabin.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Like, holy cow, Dad.
That's my dad.
Yep. A good comical one.
That's funny. You went for a while without a bike, right?
Yeah. Had a short hiatus without one.
Okay.
And that was when I had the Boulevard, and, you know, I had to let it go for some reasons. And we had you know, it was probably 8 or 9 years, 10 years without one, you know, and during that time, you know, I knew it's like there'd be times my dad would be out of town. I'd call him, hey, you know, I need to go for a ride. Can I come get the bike? And he was always, hey, you know where it's at? And okay. So I could, you know, still had the luxury of being able to still ride during that time when I didn't have one. And I can remember one of those times, because my dad is also into hot rods. He's got a really nice 73 Dodge Challenger.
Okay.
And he was down at a big car show in Oregon it was 4 or 5 days. And I think I went up to get his bike on that Friday, went for a ride, and I came back that night and my stepmom comes up. She's like, what are you doing? I said, oh, I told Dad I just should go for a little ride and, you know, bringing the bike back. She's like, Dad's at Oregon. I said, I know he's down in Oregon, but, you know, I'm just using it for today. Like, he's not going to be home till Monday or Tuesday. She goes, I'm going to ask you again, what are you doing? And then I kind of realized what she's saying. I'm going back home with the bike. Yeah. Yeah, I rode the heck out of it that week, and it was fun. But when it was 2.5, 3 years ago now, when I got a call from my stepmom that my dad really needed to talk to me. And I'm like, okay, let me, you know, put him on the phone. And she's like, no, you need to come up here. I was like, well, I can't do that. You know, we were up in Cedar Woolley at a baseball tournament. And I'm like, you know, so let me talk to Dad. And, you know, she was very adamant it wasn't going to happen. I tried calling his phone. She would answer it. And it was pushing my buttons. I was getting irritated. Finally, I was like, you know what? I'll see you tomorrow because I can't be there today.
Sure.
And then the next day we get up there and they wanted, you know, all the kids to come up and everything too. And it's like, well, this is kind of strange, but okay. So me and the wife and, you know, the boys go up there because my daughter doesn't live at home anymore. She lives over north of Seattle. So the 4 of us go up there and, you know, my dad comes out and he's got this little envelope and it's sitting on the table outside the house. And he gets in the spiel about, you know, he goes, I've been so proud of you guys, you know, the way we raised our kids. You know, our daughter was into showing horses and, you know, did a lot of stuff with that. You know, she did club volleyball and we focused our whole life around the kids. You know, the boys got into travel baseball and they fell in love with it. I mean, my Hayden went to college on a baseball scholarship.
Oh, wow.
You know, and they've been able to travel all over the West Coast playing baseball. I mean, Seth played all the way down and went into California and Oregon. You know, they played in Idaho, all over. And it's been so awesome being able to follow their adventures. And, you know, we're living the dream and all that stuff. And he's like, you know, seeing you guys sacrificed everything. And Like, well, it's not so much we sacrifice. No, we loved watching the kids do it. It was a lot of fun, and you, in a way, you talk about the motorcycle family. Well, we also found that within baseball and sports. You do something with the same group of family
Mm-hmm.
for so many years, it becomes like a family. And my dad, he goes, well, I went and bought a new bike. I'm like, hey, congrats. He's like, but there's no way I could trade in the Road Glide. He goes, we used to have a lot of fun riding. He goes, you've been without a bike for a while. He goes, so the only real thing to do is give you the title to your bike. He goes, there's your bike. He goes, I want to, continue our riding adventures and the day rides and trips we used to do. He goes, now we both got Road Glides.
That's so cool. That's such a cool story, and I've heard it on your show, and I've really wanted you to share that because it's just cool because it just proves that these trips didn't only mean something to you, but they meant a lot to your dad. They were very important to him, obviously.
Yeah, and in a way, I gotta say the comical part is, he hands me the title. He goes, this is gonna be a lot of fun. He goes, the only catch, and he kind of pulls the title back. He's like, I've had a trip planned, and my bike won't be here till next week, so you can come back next week and get it. Hey, what? Like, don't wreck my bike. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Here's your new bike.
He'd
You
had
can't
a
have
big
it.
trip plan. Yeah, he'd had a big trip planned for 6-7 months up through Canada. Him and his buddy says he puts on a ride every year in June. There's around 10 of them. They take off in either direction, and depending where they kind of plan the trip, he's like, I can't get my bike yet, so when I get back, you can get it. I'm like, okay. I remember the afternoon he got back at like 3. It's like, I want to go for a ride. Call him, hey, can I come up? Oh, I'm kind of tired, but I'll get my stuff unpacked tomorrow. I'm like, tell you what,
Just
I'll come up and
tormenting
pack
you.
for you, no problem. Yeah. So I went up there that day. I unpacked the bike for him. He's like, I didn't even get to clean it. That's all right, I'll clean it.
Yes, I'm happy to. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
exactly.
I don't think I knew that part of it, that you had to literally evict him from your new motorcycle.
Yeah, I never actually kind of shared that part. It was pretty funny, though, even though he gives it to me, but you're going to have to wait a week. Well, that sucks.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I forgot about this. I don't have this anywhere in my notes. You talked about baseball. You're a baseball announcer, correct?
Yeah, I've been doing that. I think this year will be my 6th year of doing that. And honestly, I think that baseball announcing, really helped me get comfortable with wanting to do, my podcast, because I was never one for public speaking. Matter of fact, I was terrified of it. And when we have a local, it's kind of like a high school college summer team. It's a 19U team. So depending on your birthday, like some of the players, freshmen in college, could still be eligible to come back and play for the Wilder Baseball Club, which has been around in the community now just over 40 years. I mean, they've developed some great kids, great players, and it's an awesome program. And so I went to being their announcer. They called me and said, hey, would you be interested? We need somebody. And because I think I made a joke about doing it, and they kind of took it serious.
That's how people get roped into that stuff.
Yeah. So I can remember the very first one up here. They do a really big tournament every year, the Firecracker tournament, which is 4 days long. And I mean, they bring in international teams. There's teams from Australia, Canada come down, and there's kind of a lot to it. Reading all the sponsorships names, trying to get, the credit due to all the people that help out, not just that, but, trying to not butcher the names of the players. And there's a lot that goes into it. And I remember the first day I was up in the booth just before, reading the big opening ceremony packet and, everything I was just going through. I was so nervous. I was ready to throw up in the garbage can. Like, I don't think I can do this.
Sure.
It got a little easier as time went on. And then, at that time, all I had was like what the hell was it? I had my iPhone and like an old, not an iPad. I can't remember what they're called. Anyways, we're playing music.
Yeah, iPod.
And so it's like, I'm just going to, yeah, iPod. There we go. I wanted to say iPad.
Yeah.
And I just had a little iPad. And so, trying to play some music in between stuff. And then the next year, it's like, you know what? It kind of upgraded a little bit. I was using my old iPhone, and then I also brought up the computer. And so we went through, I would do walk-up music for all the kids. Every kid on the team had their own walk-up music when they come up to bat. They would have their own walk-up music. They were pitchers. Hey, can you play this song when I'm warming up? And I would do all the music in between games. And then I got asked if I would also do it for the high school. And so then I was doing it for the high school. I was doing it for the Wilder Baseball Club. So I would start, doing baseball stuff in March and all the way till August every year. And it was a lot of fun. And I think what I enjoyed is I'd coached baseball for 10, 11 years. But when my boys went to high school, I didn't want to coach them in high school. I didn't want to be that dad that, having my sons playing, varsity, and people say, oh, he's just only on the varsity team because his dad's in the dugout. And I didn't want that. If my sons were going to be able to make the teams, then I wanted to see them make it on their own merit. And I was just going to watch. And then I got, end up transitioning up to the booth. Wishing Away can say is the greatest seat in the house because when it's cold and wind's blowing, I'm in my own little room, and I was warm.
Yeah, no kidding. Regardless of weather.
See all the parents out there. Yeah. Some parents would be huddled in blankets and whatnot, and I can just be up in the booth in a T-shirt and calling the baseball game. And it was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed doing it. And I don't think I'll be able to do it just for the high school this year, but I did let the Wilder Baseball Club know, hey, I would, love to come back. And, their response was, you're the voice of Wilder Baseball. She goes, we want you to come back until you don't want to come back. I'm like, well, hey, I got no plans of leaving the announcing booth because it's a lot of fun and I love baseball. So I'll go watch baseball and sit up in the booth.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is cool. And it's a cool way. It's a fun way that most people don't realize you're giving back to your community and doing it.
True. And, I've had some parents from other teams come up, they've come find me. It's like, we've never been somewhere where people actually pronounce the name right. And it's like I told them, I said, well, before a game, I would go get my roster, read through the names, and I would go to the coach and say, hey, how do you pronounce this one right? And then I'd write it down in pronunciation so I could try to pronounce it right. I mean, you always have those kids in schools that have some of those names that are just not easy to pronounce. And, you get some foreign names and it can be a little difficult, but I tried to do it the best I could, to, let them hear their name over the loudspeakers. And, what kid doesn't dream of hearing their name called coming up to the plate? And so I just tried to do the best I could. And, people really seemed to enjoy it and really change the whole atmosphere of games in our community. I mean, I've had now been called, like this year, I did the Little League championship game. The Little League called, hey, would you come announce our names? Hey, or announce our game? I'm like, absolutely, not a problem. And then I had the Junior Babe Ruth championship. I had that league call me, hey, would you want to do our game for us? And sure. And, now it's, becoming, I guess in a way I became a name of baseball in the community the last few years, which is a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun, especially if you love doing it. But the cool thing is, what an honor to be thought of every time somebody needs something. It means you're doing a good job.
Yeah, it is a neat honor, and it's very, very flattering to get those calls for sure. And I basically kind of made my own little equipment. I got a backpack now. I take the iPad. I got my computer, laptop that goes with me because I got thousands of songs. I have baseball playlists and all in my iTunes, and I enjoy it. So, I'd love to give back to the community, and
yeah,
I'll
good
keep
for
doing
you.
as long as I can.
Good for you. That's awesome. So very, very cool. Let's go back to the motorcycle world. I love the fact that you're giving back to the community. That is so cool. I didn't know that. So good for you. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you kind of gave us the right lead in, I guess, in that story. That kind of gave you some confidence or, I don't know, a good feeling maybe about starting your own podcast. Not afraid of public speaking anymore. So talk about how you came up with the idea to start the V Twin Life podcast and some of your early learnings.
Well, I kind of came up with the idea. It's like, it's hard to find, other motorcycle related podcasts. I enjoyed hearing writing stories, about traveling different places. And, I've kind of said it before. It's like, when it comes to motorcycle publications, I really liked Rider and Roadrunner magazine. They talked a lot about travel. And it's like, I kind of want to try something like that, hear some stories, kind of help build your own bucket list, so to speak, at different places that you'd love to visit the United States. You see them all, but why not hear it from a point of view instead of seeing it in a publication?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what, I'm gonna try this. And I talked to my wife. She said, hey, do it. She goes, you enjoy motorcycles and whatnot. She goes, maybe see how it goes. And it's like, it took me a little bit to try to find a good name, and I came upon the V Twin Life. It's like V Twins. It's not so much brand specific. I mean, look across the motorcycle industry, dang near everybody makes a V twin. I wasn't trying to make it just brand specific to say, Harley Davidson. I don't care what a person rides. And so October 2020, the V twin life was born. And I, really didn't so much have expectations. Like, I had no idea what to expect really. It's like either it's going to do horribly and nobody's going to care, or maybe some people will tune in and want to listen to it. And I was quite amazed at the feedback, and I got back even after the first episode, which was with the great, he's now passed, a mutual friend, I guess you can say we had, was Leo McElrath, or LM4 Photo.
Yep.
And it was really cool for me. I remember reaching out to him, and he jumped, oh, I'd love to. I was like, holy cow, really? And I was shocked. And the few phone calls we had beforehand talking, and he had some cool stories. It was really neat to hear the background to how people get into motorcycles. It's kind of, in a way, how I start mine. Where'd motorcycles come into life for you? And to hear the stories, how people got into it, when they got their first bike, or, kind of like his, where he bought one and actually hid it from his parents because he knew they wouldn't like it and then were against them. And
yep.
It's hearing those little stories like that was, really neat. And it just kind of grew from there. You'd send out messages to, different people. And I just kind of go through social media, find somebody who's got a motorcycle pictures. Cool. Hey, maybe they'll want to talk motorcycles and, come on and share some stories. And it just grew like crazy. I never expected it.
And here you are, 50 some episodes in now, called Mileposts, which we already talked about that, which is great. I think that name is so cool. And I remember when you came up with it, you had reached out to me and said something about it. And I'm like, oh, that is brilliant. Especially for what you're talking about, people and their riding stories.
Yeah, and it seemed awesome, a milepost, because we look at them all day when we're out riding, and It's been awesome. Like I said, yeah, tomorrow milepost 53 will be on.
Is it tomorrow that 53 comes on?
We'll be recording 53 live on YouTube tomorrow night, and then the audio version gets released on Wednesday. That goes out to all the streaming networks.
Oh, cool. Well, so that'll tell people when we're recording. So I think everybody knows by now, but this show is recorded because of travel and other life event schedules that all of us get to deal with. So we are recording. Today is, what is it? The 20th? 19th today. February 19th. This episode will come out on the 28th, which will be episode number 5 for me. So you're about 50 ahead of me, especially by the time this thing comes out. So it tells you I'm a little behind the 8 ball right now and having to get these things done. So I appreciate you taking your riding day Saturday, keeping the rain gear hanging in the closet and calling me.
Hey, not a problem. It's a lot of fun being on the other end of it. It's, a different experience. It's a lot of fun when you're the host too, but it's a different perspective when you're on the other side of it. And no, I love it, man. I was honored when you called and said, hey, I want to have you on mine. I'm like, freaking awesome. I love it.
That's cool. You mentioned you're now doing yours on YouTube as well. What prompted that addition to getting your show out there?
I think I kind of always had it as a goal that I wanted to figure out some way to get there. And I Bry the Biker was a big help for that. I mean, he tried to help me do it because I know a lot of people in the beginning were doing it through Zoom, but I'm not a computer smart individual, and Zoom, I wasn't a fan of it. I really couldn't understand it. And like, yeah, this just ain't going to work for me because you have to do it through a computer, and me and computers, we don't get along.
And then can relate.
I heard a StreamYard, and it is so user friendly. I mean, great thing is it's also mobile friendly. You can record and go live on StreamYard. When you log into you make your little account, you can set it to stream on Facebook, the other place like Twitch, YouTube. There's, I think, close to 15 different places. If you wanted to, click them all, you could send that one broadcast to multiple platforms. And so I just use it. I, have mine set up to go to my YouTube, and it's so easy to use. I've been a guest in other ones. Instead of having to set up my whole computer and all this stuff, it's like, well, I'm just going to use the iPad and, set up on the stand, and you have that option because not everybody uses computers. So I've had guests like, well, can I just use my phone? I'm like, yeah, dude, not a problem at all. And so, thanks with the help of Brian, I've using StreamYard, moved to YouTube. And I think the video interface kind of makes it a little bit more personal in a way you're face to face essentially, even though that person might be on the other side of the country. And I really think it kind of helps the conversation. Being able to see that individual that you're talking to, and doing them live is a lot of fun. You got the kind of what they call the side chat going, and there are times somebody in the side chat, they might bring up a great question they have, and it's like, man, that's a great idea. And their StreamYard, it's like I can click on that and it'll highlight it on the screen. Hey, so and so brought up a great point, and that one question, hey, that could spur 3 or 4 more, and
yeah, absolutely,
it's a lot of fun.
Help keep the conversation moving, or swing it to a direction that people want to know about.
Mm-hmm. And so, going to YouTube has been a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. And, using the StreamYard program, once you're done recording it, you can grab that audio and I can upload it right into Anchor, who is, the host platform for my podcast. And so I can put that audio right into my Anchor library, and it's done. And there it is to, then you do the little other work you got to do to get it all set up and, release out on Wednesday. So my podcast now I do live on Sundays, and then the audio version comes out on Wednesdays. So, there's still, some of the people might not want to tune in on YouTube, but hey, they can pull up the streaming side and stream it on Wednesday at noon Pacific.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know, like you, John, Ferry, and you guys have mentioned that I should bring this one to YouTube, and I just, the live deal, I can't commit to making that work, which I wish I could, but I just can't seem to. And on StreamYard, can you? No, you can't. You can't play the video and record it and have somebody chiming in, because, of course, it's over before they would see it. Duh.
But you can also, if you want to, you can just record a podcast, and you don't have to go live. You can just invite somebody in and record it, and then you could, put it on YouTube or, your Facebook, wherever, if you wanted to, and have the video. You don't have to use StreamYard just to go live. You can do the interface where, if you want to sit down and just record a video for yourself to publish somewhere, you can use that, because they have other little features, putting, your logo in the side, you can make little banners going across the bottom while you're doing your video. There's a lot of little features, and even the free version has a lot of stuff you can do to enhance your video right through their own program.
No, that's cool. When you first started, did you start yours on Anchor? Like most people, it was just you, the Anchor link, and Anchor did all the recording for you?
Yeah, that's how I did it for a long time, which is Anchor. You'd send your guest a text and record it over the phone. Just, you try to tell them, hey, headphones really help. You don't get the feedback sometimes, and then trying to make sure that, both you and your guests have the best internet connection you could get, because that's kind of one thing I found was a downfall. You get frustrated is the internet latency sometimes, but there really wasn't much you could do to edit that out.
Right. And I remember early on in yours how we talked about it, actually. I think I had reached out to you and said, hey, do you know this is happening? And you did. So that was good. You did know, and you got it corrected.
Yeah, it's one of those things you had to live with. And
yeah. I was going to ask, so in starting the podcast, what was your biggest struggle? And I'm not asking this. You and I talk enough off air where you've helped me quite a bit with mine. I've had some other input from people that have helped a ton. But in yours, and this is not to try to, become a better show. I want people to know how hard this really is, because I am learning this now going into episode 5. This is way more difficult than I thought. So talk a little bit about that. When you first started your podcast, like your biggest struggle, or 2 or 3 struggles, what did you really struggle with at first?
In the beginning, it's even just Anchor gives you limited editing. And sometimes I think the hardest part is like you would record it. You come back and play the podcast through, and you'd have a lot of dead space. Because say it's like you could bring up a question, the other person, and they're thinking, because maybe, you got a good question. They kind of got to catch them off guard for a minute or something. And it was trying to, listen to it and go back through and edit and clip out, 5-second pieces here. And then 10 seconds later, you got to clip out another one, and just trying to condense it so you don't have that large amount of dead space. That was kind of the hard part in learning. And that's when I found out that editing, you really had to do on a computer and not like an iPad or a phone, because it didn't give you the ability to edit in depth as it does on a desktop version, or, say your laptop, where they gave you a little bit more editing options to, try to condense it, but you're only allowed so many edits per podcast. I want to say it's like 50 because I'd made one and I didn't know that. And the guest called me back. He's like, "Hey, did you listen to that after you edited it?" I'm like, "Actually, I didn't know." And it had actually chopped up and brought back the beginning halfway through. And I'm like, "Oh, crap." And I'd already published it. So I quickly deleted it. And luckily, he also had a copy because he had ran his own podcast and actually sent me his version that he recorded from his end because once I chopped it up and resaved it, I didn't save it correctly where I could go back and try to re-edit the original again.
So
That was kind of a learning
Anchor
process.
limits to how many cuts you can put in those?
I think so. I want to say it's 50, unless maybe they've changed it.
I don't know. I'm taking notes here because I'm going to ask you about a few things. So please continue. Getting rid of the dead space and that stuff was your big struggle.
In the beginning, yeah, because the first couple, it's like you just record it and then it's like, hey, cool, boom, publish it. And then, you get feedback from, people that were listening. It's like, okay, and let me try to figure this out. And then, trying to making your cover, getting, a right kind of, picture for your social media. And that's one thing I got to say that I really liked with Anchor is being able to change the cover art for every episode. It doesn't like iTunes. They won't show that, but you can go, say if a person tunes in on Spotify, that cover art, because I change it for every one. I make it, to show that episode, hey, here's a picture of, say Salty and Sprinkles, Big Smitty, or guys that I've had on. So every cover art is that person. People can, oh, hey, that's so-and-so. Yeah, I want to check this one out. And that is one neat thing I do like about Spotify is because they will allow you to change it on their format, but some of the other listening formats for streaming, that part of it doesn't show up, but that's what it is.
Yeah, interesting. I don't change, like I guess when you go into iTunes, that's the cover art for mine. We never change it. We change it in our posts. Like when you see our posts on Facebook or Instagram, there's every one of those is changed, and I don't know if anybody knows that. You and I have never met in person, so that'll be a new one for us. I don't have a picture of you and I together like I have been on the first ones. So I'm going to have to say, send me one you like.
Yep. And that's kind of, like now I'm going to, want to record a couple different audio ones now that, myself, I've got some different audio equipment now with, a new microphone and kind of want to see how that's going to do. I'd like to record one so much, not from YouTube, but just do an audio one and see how my audio changes now with, kind of the new setup that I got going on too, which I'll be curious as I just always use the standard earbuds that come with my iPhone. They got the little microphone and that's all I've ever used when I was recording over the phone. But now that I've, switched up to YouTube, I had a user that has followed the podcast, became great friends with, sent me an amazing new camera, Blue Yeti microphone. I got different mic stands, a boom stand, and he sent me a bunch of equipment, which is freaking amazing.
That is really cool. Hey, more motorcycle community love right there.
Yeah. He'd upgraded to a bunch of new stuff. He's like, hey, man, he goes, I really want to help you out. And so he'd send me this stuff. I was freaking amazed. It was totally unexpected. I get this huge box in the mail and open it up and like, holy cow. I mean, some of the stuff was still in the original packaging.
That's, what's funny about that
if you went and bought it.
Is I had a podcast before. It was a local thing, not motorcycle industry at all. And I made it like, I don't know, 10 or 12 episodes, and it was really hard to find guests, and it was a struggle. And finally, it was at the point where Wild Ass started to go, and I needed to either focus on that or do both of them half-assed, and I wasn't about to do that. So I ended up just, not recording any more episodes. And I have all the equipment here. Couldn't get it to work, with the previous podcast was face-to-face. People come in and we do it. Doesn't work over the phone. And I found out about maybe a week ago, maybe it was last weekend, I found out there's a kid that works over at Clockworks. His name is Shelton, and he wants to start a podcast. And it doesn't sound like it's going to be in the motorcycle industry because it's some other things that he wants to do. And I just sent him a message. I think it was yesterday. If I check my Instagram, I bet it was yesterday. I'm like, hey, do you have any equipment yet or whatever? Well, I boxed all of it up and it's leaving here on Monday he doesn't know it's coming. So same thing. That's pretty cool. It's cool to hear that people do that, I think, is really my point, that, help each other out. I mean, rising tide lifts all ships, right? So if we all get better, it's a better place.
Exactly.
I guess that's what I'm getting at there.
Yeah, it's a whole, giving back thing.
Yeah, and I'm not using it. So what am I going to do with it? Put it on eBay and not get paid for it? So this way I give it to
Yeah,
him.
I mean,
He
whether
can start.
yeah, you call it, giving back or, pay it forward, whatever, your way you want to get to it. It's, you help that person out. Hey, I got something that can help you out. Let me send you this.
So I know that he'll be listening to this. Of course, he'll have the equipment before this thing goes live, and I think he's a few episodes behind because he just kind of sent me a message and had found it somewhere, probably seen it in one of our posts or something. I'm not sure, but he'll have that. So what else has been tough? Getting rid of dead space was one that I can really relate to. But what else other than that? How about your equipment? You got this new stuff. Did you have an in between, or did you go straight from
No,
the
actually,
earbuds to what you got now?
yeah, I literally this week, I've been using my earbuds the whole time, whether they're, plug-in ones or Bluetooth. I always, worry about the Bluetooth. Is the battery going to last long and die in the middle of it? Because that would suck.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, kind of, upgrading and, progressing, I guess you could say. Now, kind of upping my game, so to speak.
That's cool because
And
you
the
got.
biggest thing I think also is, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It just also tried to, get your guests lined up so where you're not crammed to, making yourself pressured to get one, 1, 2, 3 days. So that's the thing I've been learning, especially doing them on YouTube, is trying to line it up a week ahead so you can get it scheduled so it shows up on your YouTube page. So then, you can post it up on your social media platforms to, start getting the word out so people, want to come in and attend and, watch it, get in the side chat. And so trying to really stay ahead of the curve, as I've learned now on the YouTube side, is kind of important.
Oh, for sure. How much time are you spending rounding up guests and getting things organized per episode on average, you think?
Oh, you spend at least a few hours because, you get the guest down, but, my setup, I like to at least talk to the person once or twice on the phone, so that way, in a sense, you're not going into it blind, kind
Yeah.
of get to know the person away, kind of lay down a little, base conversation, kind of get a little bit of their backstory ahead of time, talk to them kind of, hey, this is kind of how I like to do things. This is what I, kind of a small little rundown of kind of how how it's going to go, how, question wise and get those things laid out and then just kind of build that friendship. Cause like I said before, that's the other awesome thing about this podcast that I can say is I built a friendship with every person that I've had on,
Yep.
and you're another prime example. I mean, we talk at least probably every 2 weeks or so, and there's a lot of guys I still stay in contact with. I get messages from, we got group chats and phone calls, and that in a way I'd say is the biggest reward of this whole thing is that friendship of people that I have that I made, and if it wasn't for this, I know that I wouldn't have those friends.
Absolutely. It's cool. And all of it done off of a set of earbuds and a stock iPhone
And an iPhone.
microphone. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it all started. I kind of watched some YouTube videos. Hey, how to start a podcast. And everybody always talks about Anchor is a great thing because it's free. Here's how to use it. And you got a smartphone. I mean, literally, that's all you need. You could always just hold it up to your ear like you're on a normal phone call. Or, the earbuds kind of make it handier so you can set it on a little stand or lay it on a table. So if you got notes you're making or writing, your hands are free. And it's an easy to use kind of platform to introduce you to get started. And then, man, you can go down that rabbit hole of equipment just to make yourself better as you progress and keep going.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's cool. I was going to mention you had talked about dead space in that editing. That dead space that we talk about, is that, I know the answer for me, but is that because you're an announcer that you notice the dead space so much?
It could kind of, in a way, yeah. I think that's fair. And I had a couple people comment on it also, and it's that learning curve. Okay, how can I fix this? And kind of got to educate yourself a little bit. Just do your homework. And I was able to eliminate, I would like to say, 90% of out of most episodes. You kind of condense and you might end up shortening it a minute or two. But you kind of keeps that flow going pretty smooth through the whole thing. And I will say I liked it better.
Yeah, it's funny because I had a racetrack back in the day, and dead space was my pet peeve. Was when you'd go to a racetrack. I'm a huge stock car fan. I love like dirt track stock cars. I just can't stand it when you're sitting there and the cars, for instance, are off the track and it's completely quiet. Like the announcer's not talking. There's nothing on the track. That to me is dead space, and it drives me insane when I'm at the events. It's like, come on, entertain us, do something, talk about the next race, talk about something. And having dead space is brutal when I go to the racetrack. So I was just wondering if that kind of relayed into the podcast world, because same thing here. If it's more than a half a second, I'm like, oh, get that off there.
Oh yeah, I mean we get that in a way. We other baseball games go somewhere and between innings where it's just dead silent. The kids are warming up on the field or whatnot, and it's like all the other parents will look at me. This really sucks. I wish we were playing at home.
Another compliment for Denver.
Yeah, you don't realize just how much it really changes the environment. I mean, a little bit of music, I guess, in a way you say, hey, you know what? It goes a long way of instead of listening to just silence, you got some tunes. I mean, one of the funniest ones I can remember, it was between an inning and I sparked up some song. I think it was Sunflower. I think it was Post Malone that sung it. And the catcher who was warming up his pitcher, he was down there dancing, up and down, bouncing around. And, even the catcher, the other team, they were getting into it. And I will say I did have one complaint, though. One time we had an opposing team. The coach went out there to talk to his pitcher. You ever heard Abbott Costello, the great baseball routine? Who's on first, who's on second, or what's on second?
Yep.
Oh, I keyed that up, and he got pissed. He stormed, from the pitcher's mound, staring at me, to the point after the game in the parking lot, having to stare down. I'm like, you want to say something? It's all meant in good humor, man. And everybody in the stands was dying laughing. I guess he took offense to it, but it's like, whatever.
Probably having a bad day. Was his team getting beat? Probably, if he had to go talk to the pitcher.
Yeah, it was. And even, I talked to our coach. He's like, dude, that's hysterical. He goes, if I ever go to the mound or anybody, he goes, I want to play it every time. He goes, that is the most classic baseball. He goes, that's a compliment in a way. And, we all think different ways, but I think that's the only negative side of the whole thing I've ever had in the years of doing it was that one time. And it was just one person. Everybody else, the 100+ people there, they were dying laughing. But yeah, whatever.
Yep. No, that's cool.
I mean, I've even gotten the umpires where you think they make a bad call, strike a batter out, and then I keyed up blinded by the light. It was sun shining that day.
No offense, the sun's out.
I try to have fun. We make everybody laugh. You got to have some humor in life to keep it going.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds like you're doing a good job of it, and it'd be fun to sit in one of those games, sit in the bleachers and listen to you.
Oh, absolutely. Got to get you out here in the summertime.
I have to come out there. So John Ferrian, we talked about him. His wife is my wife's cousin. So that's, and John and I went to school together back in the 1900s. So we've known each other for a long time. And then I guess technically you could say we're almost related, I guess, but we have to get the girls together out there. That's kind of one of the deals. So we'll have to get out there, and maybe taking in a baseball game is something we can do.
Yeah, it's like 2.5 hours from my place to his.
Right. And that seems like a pretty good motorcycle ride for our fellow new rider out there in the Seattle area.
Yeah, you fight a little bit of Highway 18 traffic, you hit I-5 for about 6 miles, and you get on Highway 16, and oh yeah, I can name you all. I make that drive every day.
Tell us about your day job. What do you do?
I'm a commercial truck driver. I haul lumber every day. Most of the time I go from here in Port Angeles to Tacoma twice a day hauling lumber. Driving a big 18-wheeler. Well, actually, it's 26. I got a 4-axle truck, 4-axle trailer because we're a heavy haul flatbed. We haul 105,500 pounds.
Light little load to pull down the freeway and make sure that you get it stopped in time.
Yeah, and sometimes I really wish people would have a little bit more sense when they want to cut you off and then slam on their brakes. It's like, we can't stop quick, and you get some hairy situations, and sometimes just people would have a little bit more common sense or respect.
Yeah, for sure. My brother's a truck driver, and he says the cure for that is to give truckers one free day. Like, whatever happens, the truckers won't be held accountable. He said people will never pull in front of us again.
Oh, that, and a lot of people don't like them, but a dash camera. I mean, we don't have to run them in our trucks for the company we work at, but all of our drivers do, and it has saved our company a couple times from accidents where people tried to pin it on the truck driver, and the cops say, come up, this happened. It's like, that's not even close to what happened.
Yeah.
And, we had one driver, a lady, actually did a pit maneuver on herself against the front of his truck, and he pushed her broadside down the highway, and she tried to claim he switched lanes and hit her, and when they came to talk to him, say, hey, this is what happened. He's like, well, no, it's not. And The officer, well, this is her statement. He's like, well, you want to see my dash camera? You can see what really happened.
Sure.
And he goes, it's kind of funny. He goes, you can fit 3 state patrolmen in your cab of your truck with you. He goes, it'll fit. But yeah, that dash camera video saved him, and she flat out lied.
Yeah, but you're the professional, so it's always your fault.
Yeah, yeah. You have a commercial license, and it's always your fault. Sometimes it seems to get pushed that way, but if you can, a little piece of equipment just to try to help you out can go a long ways. And I don't have a problem having it in my truck. I prefer to a little cheap sense of insurance, you could say.
Yeah, absolutely. So that before we go down that rabbit hole, we'll just cut it off because we can talk about that for hours. 6 stories, and I get a fair amount of mileage put on my van every year, so the stuff we get to see on the road is amazing. I can relate to what you're doing, and a dash cam maybe wouldn't be a bad idea for me too. I should look at one of those. But you've listened to my podcast. This is episode 5. The previous 4 were all pretty much recorded before I had them all out. So I've been having audio issues. Thank you, Anchor. I've been having glitching issues. Thank you, cell service. All kinds of stuff. And I'm not blaming everything because, it's if I started off with great equipment, it wouldn't happen. But we've connected quite a bit. I got some other friends that have helped me pick out equipment, try to make things better. Looking at, now I have gauges. I can see, or meters, I don't even know what you call them, that our volumes are pretty close, so we should be cleared up there. You've helped me quite a bit. I want to thank you for that. We both went into today knowing that this is an experiment because you get to try all this new equipment with me, so I want to thank you for that. But so what I'm getting at there is you have heard the previous 4 episodes. Nobody else before that, they didn't hear the episodes before, so they didn't know about my 5 questions. You have a little bit of an advantage. I don't think, Hopper might have, I don't remember, but they've all pretty much been recorded. You're the only person that has heard them. So these 5 questions I'm going to ask you are designed to make you think. There's no wrong answer. I love hearing different people's answers to what I'm about to ask. So are you ready for these?
I am. And then I want to say on a side note,
okay,
you do a tremendous job on your podcast. I have listened to the previous ones and I enjoy it. I remember listening to the first one you did, and it's like, I was ready for the next episode. I was driving down the road. It's like, shit, I need something else to listen to now. And well, so I just want to say, I really enjoy your format, Craig. You do a great job, and, honored to be one of your guests also.
Well, thank you for that. And of course, we'll probably have you back in the future. So these questions basically designed to get everybody thinking and see what's up out in everyone else's world. And the first one is probably my favorite question. So the question is, what is something that you believe that others would think is insane?
Riding a motorcycle is fun. People, I think, don't understand. They don't get it. When you crash, you get hurt, and they don't see why you get back on. They don't understand. It's like, that could have killed you. Why are you doing it again? And, my response is, you get in a car wreck, you're going to quit driving your car?
Sure.
Well, no, you get back in it and you keep going. And, motorcycles will be the same way. And I'm sure many people that ride a bike are going to understand that and totally agree, where other people that are not familiar with motorcycles, maybe don't ride them, they're not going to get that.
Sure.
Got to get back on the horse.
That's right. Okay. The next question. This could be an investment of money, time, energy, or other resources. But what is the best or most worthwhile investment you have made when it comes to your world on 2 wheels?
I would say quality tires for your motorcycle, because they are going to, maybe you can't afford the best ones, but you're going to difference in ride, whether, cornering or, just longevity of the tires. Buying a good quality compound tire is going to make a difference in your ride.
Sure. I can attest to that. Let's see. The next question is, what is the worst advice you see or hear being dispensed in the motorcycle world?
Yeah, this could go many different ways. I think, in a way, I don't know if it really kind of answers your question out, but I want to say, proper gear. To me, I know everybody has their opinions and we all live in different sides, but like the other day, I seen a guy riding in jeans and he was riding his bike in slippers.
Slippers?
Like, no way, man. Yeah, he had slippers on. No joke.
Huh. Wonder who advised
Myself,
him that
maybe
was
it's
good.
because, yeah, well, and like you see guys in shorts and t-shirt. I mean, yeah, there are times in the summer I admit I'll ride in a t-shirt, but I always wear boots and I will always wear long jeans and, sometimes even a long sleeve shirt. And to me, it's just at least some bit of safety gear. Maybe the boots come from, years of motorcycle riding, from when it comes to dirt, but I won't ride in tennis shoes. I don't care if I'm going 2 blocks to the grocery store to get stuff. I'll put my boots on. And, safety gear, just one of those things, long jeans and boots. Maybe that doesn't quite answer your question, but that's just the one thing that pops in mind.
So the answer then you're giving is that people would say you don't need that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And wrong.
Right. Let's see. So as far as my audience or listeners, do you have any asks or requests of them?
Subscribe to your podcast, follow along because you have a great format. You'll end up some great questions and, it is a great podcast to listen to.
Well,
I'm a big fan.
Thank you. And we are hoping they're already subscribed. And folks, if you're not, hit the subscribe button right now because Denver said to. Right? How's that?
That's right.
The next question, where can we follow Denver and the V-Twin Life?
Well, you can follow the V-Twin Life podcast. We're on YouTube. The V-Twin Life podcast. Well, actually, it's the V-Twin Life _podcast on Instagram. The Facebook page is the V-Twin Life podcast. No, actually, it's just the V-Twin Life. Excuse me. And you'll see upcoming information on both the social media sites for upcoming broadcasts on YouTube. And we've been doing every Sunday at generally 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. We're live on YouTube. Those will come up on the social media pages. The 4, 5, 6, 7 days prior. Trying to remind people. I've now became a co-host on the Beyond the Rider series on YouTube, which is every Wednesday at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern with Bride the Biker. That's been a lot of fun, and you can follow along on the adventures right there.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations on that gig. I don't think I knew that.
That's just a recent addition here in the last week or two.
Okay, that'd be why I don't know it.
Yeah, I sat on a few of them, and he asked me if I'd just basically be his co-host. He goes, we seem to really work together, similar personalities, and work well together, and it's been a lot of fun.
Good deal. Yeah, when you find somebody that you can blend with and work well with, it makes life so much fun and also a bit easier.
Yeah.
Well, cool, Denver. Thank you. I want to thank you for coming on. Thank you for tolerating this chaos this morning, trying to get this thing recorded. Because, well, for those not knowing, you got to listen to me fling coffee all over my desk and on the computer screen and keyboard. So it was good. But thank you for coming on. And go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you very much also for all your support with my podcast. It's, it's an honor to, have you guys come on board, basically, sponsoring the podcast, helping out and just, all the support through the conversation. Like you said, running ideas off each other, and the friendship has been amazing.
I would agree. Thank you very much. Do you have any last parting words for the listeners?
Ride safe, have fun, enjoy the open road.
Seems like good words to live by. Thank you for coming on, Denver. I appreciate it. For everybody listening to the show, again, if you like what you're listening to, hit that subscribe button. Hopefully this episode sounds a little bit better than the last ones, and it's only going to get better with all of the help I'm getting from Denver, from future guests coming on. Really, we owe it all to you, the listeners, for keeping us out here doing what we love to do, and that's just talk motorcycles. So thank you guys for listening. Subscribe. The Wild Ass Podcast come out every other Monday. Look forward to talking to you on the next one. Thank you.